right, talking the business fans, JP, KC, obviously KC, JP, talking the business. We're doing something unique today because it's been a kind of big week. We're going to give you a weekend review show. Something we don't normally do, JP. I mean, obviously the show's about independent wrestling, but it was such a big week of wrestling with Sunday being TLC, the biggest Raw of the year, obviously rating-wise, in probably a couple of years for WWE.
Yep.
We followed that up with a huge SmackDown, and then, oh, by the way, the WrestleMania for Ring of Honor being Final Battle just this past Friday night. Unbelievable. So much going on. I thought, well, let's get us together. Let's grab a couple of Coors Light, and let's talk the business. So, JP, what takes you back from this week? What, really grabs you?
Two things stood out for me this week. Definitely AJ Styles versus Jay Lethal in Ring of Honor.
And fans, if you have not gotten this pay-per-view yet, I know you go, oh my God, $35 for a pay-per-view. AJ Styles, Jay Lethal might be the last time they ever wrestled together again. By far, match of the year. Not even close. And this is saying, I mean, you're talking about, remember back in January in Philadelphia, Royal Rumble, you had Mr. Rollins versus Lesnar versus Cena. You've had Cena versus Kevin Owens this year.
3 times.
3 times, actually. This, by far, was the match of the year, not only in storytelling, but just the in-ring and how they work it. I mean, how do you rate it? I mean, it's...
Definitely 5 stars right off the bat. I mean, AJ walked into this match with a lot of back issues. Anybody that follows his career knows that history. Jay Lethal had a lot to prove, being in Philadelphia,
And Jerry Lynn being at the announce table, Jerry Lynn being very vocal about him picking AJ going into the match.
Right.
And then you end the match, and if you haven't watched it, I'm giving you a spoiler, fair warning, using the cradle pile driver before you go into the second lethal injection to finish off AJ. Lethal walks out. Yeah, he walks out Ring of Honor champion, but can you say maybe he's the #1 wrestler in the world today? I know we're talking about Nakamura, we're talking about Okada, and some of the other guys, but that performance was...
Jay Lethal and AJ Styles both tore the house down, but overall, you got to look at it. Ring of Honor, some of the guys are mid to upper 20s, 30s. Jay's kind of the veteran in the bunch, and he went out there and did what he does best.
If you don't have Jay Lethal in your top 5 wrestlers in the world, you watch that match, you have no choice but to put him in there. It was that kind of performance, and we haven't even touched on NXT TakeOver, which was obviously Wednesday in London. Crowd insane. I got to mention a couple of matches in there. First of all, we have Bayley versus Nia Jax. The London crowd cheering for Bayley.
Yes.
I want to beat Bayley. Can you be my girl? The singing, just the build-up throughout the match. Then you go Enzo and Cass. Their tag title shot. Enzo and Cass usually great on the mic.
Right. Good
in the ring.
Right.
They stepped their game up to a whole different level in this match. Don't you agree?
I do agree. And, that's the thing with NXT is, not saying this personally to anybody on the WWE roster, but once you've made your spot in that main event, you're there. If you're on Raw or SmackDown, you're there. Yeah, you can get kicked off, but you can say you made it. Those guys in NXT, they're going out there and they got something to prove. And they know, you can't go into WWE and just be a good wrestler. You got to be charismatic. You got to be good on the microphone. You got to be all the way around. Prime example of that would be Roman Reigns right now. He's great in the ring. He's
solid in the ring.
Watch.
Yeah.
But when the man picks up a microphone,
you turn and run out of the building sometimes.
Right. You lose your interest.
And I'm not crapping on Roman Reigns like all the other marks on the internet.
Right.
Let's be honest. We've heard him in situations where he hasn't been scripted and he actually has some charisma.
Right.
And then, if we're going to talk about NXT TakeOver, obviously the big match, Samoa Joe, Finn Balor. 5 years ago, it pretty much headlines any indie show from Japan to America.
Right.
We get it in London. Finn comes out with a very kind of unique look at the Demon. Joe comes out and maybe wrestles his best match, what, in 3-4 years easily?
Yes.
They tear the house down. So you've got these two great pay-per-views this week. You've got Final Battle, which, again, I'm not trying to plug or throw ROH down your throat, but from the very first match of Ring of Honor to the last match of Final Battle, there's not a bad match.
No, not at all.
I mean, it's an all-star WrestleMania type of pay-per-view for Ring of Honor. NXT rings the house. You see that, you go, well, how does WWE even... But WWE had a great week.
WWE did have a great week. They did. Something that I didn't agree, and you and me have talked about this, something I didn't agree with was you have Sheamus come in, you have him looking powerful, coming in, hitting the bro kick on Roman Reigns, taking the title, and then the very next night, the man loses the title.
It was kind of unusual because you knew that Roman was eventually going to get the title.
Right.
There was no questions there leading into it.
Right.
You expected it to happen at TLC.
Right.
It doesn't happen.
Right.
Roman attacks Triple H, and obviously that's going to lead to some kind of ramifications down the line. But I do want to hit on one point when it comes to Monday Night Raw. And the biggest villain, per se, in the business, to this day, whether he's on TV or hasn't, he hasn't been on TV in a year, is Vince McMahon.
Yes,
and so Vince literally comes over, and something that hasn't been really discussed was, in January, Royal Rumble, and which is my favorite pay-per-view of the year.
Right, right.
The Philadelphia crowd boos not only Roman Reigns, but The Rock the hell out of the goddamn building.
Right.
It's not even close.
Right.
You turn to 12 months later.
Right.
On Raw. And they're cheering Roman Reigns as he wins the title.
Right.
Is that the work WWE has done creatively towards Roman, or is that Vince McMahon coming in and going, I'm Vince McMahon, I'm going to put him over and watch what happens? I'm curious to what you think about it.
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, you go back to the Attitude Era, the Austin and McMahon feud. I mean, great. It had a lot of creativity behind it, but you had two guys that were totally opposite. You had, Austin, who was the anti-authority. You had Vince trying to make him become this proper champion, and it just clashed and made for a great storyline. So I think when Vince was trying to get Roman over, and it did not work, Vince knew we got to take this another way. We got to go another way to get this guy over before we drop the title to him. So this was a way for the ultimate heel to face the ultimate face. So when Vince and Roman had their little confrontation on Raw, that led to the fans backing Roman even more. So when he won the title, Vince was probably backstage really concentrating on how the crowd reacted when that moment happened to see if...
Oh, and it was a great moment in Philly. Probably the toughest crowd in the world. I mean, you tell me that a show's going to be at Philly like Final Battle for Ring of Honor was or Raw, I bought it. Right. I mean, other than Chicago, Philly is it. They're the toughest crowd there is. So I had to watch it, and leading into it, and even after it, I'm like, wow, you've spent so much time trying to get Roman there, and this is what it took to get there.
Right.
Okay, Roman's there. That's wonderful. A great in-ring performer. Hopefully they're going to be, let him be a little bit more charismatic, be himself on the mic.
Yes.
So where does this lead in the future? And I think that leaves a lot of great questions. And I'm going to say this to all the fans out there. You can hate Sheamus. Sheamus did his job. He put Roman Reigns over like $1 million. Unbelievable. There's something to be said for that guy in a business that helps someone else look 10 times better than maybe what they really are. And Sheamus, round of applause for talking the business. You really did the job. I give you total credit for that, and really showed up. It was unbelievable. So we don't normally do this. We don't normally gonna sit around and say, okay, a week in review.
Right.
But this was a special week in a lot of ways, and leads to a great year, doesn't it?
Yes. I mean, you had two, well, actually three, because technically NXT is a third company. You had WWE having their great week. You had NXT, who bought the house down with the TakeOver show. Then you closed it out with Final Battle, and you closed it out with Jay Lethal and AJ Styles.
Folks, like I said, I'll say it one more time before we close this. It's real simple. I know it's Christmas. $35 is tough. Saying that, that one match is worth all the final battle. We're not even going to talk about the Bucks. We're not going to talk about Adam Cole. We're not going to talk about Kyle O'Reilly. We're not going to talk about Moose and Elgin. That one match alone, by far, is worth $35.
Yes, absolutely.
Unbelievable week, and we just wanted to share it with you. So, give us your feedback. Let us know what you think. You know how to reach us on Facebook. You can reach us through the Twitter at KCJBTTB2016. Let us know. I screwed it up as always, but that's normal for us. Anyway, you can catch us on YouTube. You know the email site. It's very simple. It's kcjpttb@gmail.com. Let us know your feedbacks. Let us know what you think. A special week. So a special week, we give a big salute to all the guys in the majors. We appreciate everything you did this week. And only as JP and KC can say, deuces.